Hey everybody, Shady here. So for today I'm finally going to do one of my first reviews, if you want to call it that. So basically, as you know, Resident Evil 4 Remake is around the corner, and Resident Evil 4 the original is one of my favourite games ever of all time. And really I want to kind of explain to you why in 2023, even with the remake coming out, this game is still worth your time. You should probably play it before the remake comes out anyway, or even after, indefinitely, because it's such a great game. But before we actually get into the game itself, I want to give a bit of a history lesson, because that's actually one of the most coolest and interesting parts about this game, is the kind of somewhat troubled history of Resident Evil 4 itself. So first things first, first thing we have to discuss is another game first, which is Resident Evil Code Veronica. And a lot of people wonder, why is this not called 4? Or, you know, it's very strange, isn't it? It's just got this random name. It is a numbered game, but it doesn't have a number. And the reason is because this game was originally meant to be Resident Evil 3. And basically, because Capcom had a deal with Sony to actually release 3 numbered titles, this game, which was originally meant to be a side game, got the name 3, and then obviously this just got a subtitle. So yeah, technically this is 3 and this is a side game, but obviously it doesn't matter now, but just a really interesting thing. And then next, there was another game that started working 2000. Yeah, even that far back they were working on a Resident Evil 4. But that became like kind of deviated too far and became too much of an action game, so it became its own series, one that you guys should know yourselves if you're Capcom fans like me. Devil May Cry, one of my favorites as well. But yeah, if you actually play this game, and like once you've realized that, you kind of see those similarities. Devil May Cry has fixed camera angles, has a very creepy eerie atmosphere. You can actually get item descriptions from different areas and in your inventory and the actual environments. You can get those details like you would in a Resident Evil game. And there's even files as well when you defeat the enemies. If you don't know, you can actually go into the bestiary and look at details. So there's a lot of similarities actually, and you can definitely see why. And then after that, then there was basically, if you remember, Capcom, when the GameCube came out, they had this kind of really close partnership with Nintendo at the time. So what they did was they obviously they remade this game, Resident Evil Remake, but then after doing that, because they developed all these new engines and stuff like that, there was actually a game they did before for the N64 called Resident Evil 0, as you know. And basically, for some reason that project fell through, but then after doing that remake, they kind of went back to it and started again using that engine. So they created obviously Resident Evil 0 for the GameCube. But what a lot of people probably don't remember is that these games came out within the same year. Even though Remake was kind of, people loved it and hailed it, when 0 came out, people felt as if Resident Evil was kind of old hat and they'd done too many of these games. It's very strange because it's kind of similar to how it is now, where Resident Evil's kind of gone on a roll since 7 and is just releasing game after game. It kind of felt like that, so people felt the burnout, so they felt like they had to go back to the drawing board and actually think of something new to do with Resident Evil. So that's where you'll get these, what a lot of people refer to as Resident Evil 3.5, but there was a few different builds of the early part of Resident Evil. So if you've seen 3.5, hopefully I should be able to get some footage up for you guys to see. Leon is, you know, there's still the fixed camera angles. You have Leon in the way he actually looks in 4 itself, but then you see there's like a very creepy eerie atmosphere, and a lot of people refer to this as the hallucination build, where there's like this enemy called Hookman who just appears out of nowhere, and then you have these dolls that start attacking him. And the original idea was that what would become the parasite in Resident Evil 4 was originally going to be some kind of thing that messes with Leon's mind. So he's actually like infected from the start, but then he gets all these crazy hallucinations, almost Silent Hill-ish. But then I believe they thought it was too much of a deviation from what Resident Evil originally was. So obviously they went with what they did eventually, which was the Resident Evil 4 we know and love. Okay, and now that we've got all that stuff out of the way, let's talk about Resident Evil 4 itself. So first things first, I have obviously mentioned this in a previous video if you've seen it before in my Resident Evil collection video, but Nintendo and Capcom had a partnership called the Capcom 5. So basically there's these 5 big exclusives made just for the GameCube. This was obviously a way to boost GameCube sales because obviously it really underperformed. Yeah, if I'm correct, I think it only sold like 13, around 20 million units or something like that. It wasn't actually a lot really compared to like the PS2, but it had 5 games. So Killer 7, Beautiful Joe, there was another game, Piano 3, and there was another one called like Forbidden Kingdom or something like that, which fell through. And then obviously the final game, which was Resident Evil 4. So this game was originally launched exclusively for the GameCube. And yeah, it's obviously it was kind of the system seller at the time because it was the new numbered Resident Evil game. So now to the game itself. So to summarize the plot of the game, as things start off with a narration by Leon discussing the end of Umbrella and how they fell. Really the whole point of this is just to show that that's the end of that chapter now. This is essentially a soft reboot of the series because that's essentially what they're going for. And then we see Leon in a car, in the back of a car with 2 police officers. He's on his way to this village in Spain because the president's daughter has been kidnapped, and this cult called Los Illuminados have been linked to it, and they've been pinpointed to this particular area. So Leon's dropped off, he comes out, he enters his house, asks a villager whether they've seen this girl, and they basically become hostile towards him, and then it becomes a fight for his life in this village, and he has to kind of go deeper in to try to figure out where she is and solve the case basically. And yeah, it's pretty straightforward from there, and then we just sort of go through different areas, fighting off different enemies. And one of the key things in this game is that the enemies have completely changed. No more zombies. We have these things called granados, who are a lot more intelligent and sort of vicious than your standard zombies. They'll actually run at you, they'll use weapons, they'll kind of team up, try to flank you and stuff like that. So it's a lot more difficult. And obviously, to coincide this change, we have a completely new style of gameplay. So now it's an over-the-shoulder camera, fully 3D world, and you have your gun with a dot sight, so you can aim at your enemies and basically pick them off, because obviously with this new control method you need enemies that are more vicious to make hold of it. And what this game does really great is that it still manages to capture the atmosphere and the fear factor while being an action game. It's very difficult kind of balance, but this game manages to do it very well. One thing that I really love as well is the new inventory system, but because obviously it's more of an action game, you can have more weapons. So you have the attaché case. So the whole point is you have one big case, and it's like a grid, and then different weapons items will take different spaces within this grid, and you have to basically manage your inventory like that. So there's still some inventory management and some kind of having to conserve items, but not quite to the extreme. So it still manages to take those early elements and mix it into an action game, which is really cool. And also, like, the actual level design is amazing. So we start off in the village, and then obviously we go through eventually into a castle, and we go to a laboratory, and then we see loads of cool different areas, which is one of the kind of staples of Resident Evil. Because obviously, as you know, in the original, you start from the mansion, you eventually go to like a guest house, and then you go into the lab itself, so you still have that aspect of it. Another thing is the variety of enemies is still there, like it was in the older games. So obviously you have the standard granados, and then you'll get Dr. Salvador, who's essentially just a granado with a sack on his head and a chainsaw. So that's cool. And then we get things like the regenerators, the bloody, oh my god, I can't remember all the names of them, but there's so many awesome different enemies. And there's like these things, like these lizards that kind of jump at you and turn invisible, but then you just have like there's a little shine in their eyes before they attack. You get all these cool kind of oh my god, I think they're called like the Garradors. That's the one where it's just this dude who is blind, has these giant like kind of claws, and is wearing this kind of armor that you have to kind of lure to attack a wall so you can shoot from behind. It's really cool. And obviously this game, we don't have the T virus. We actually have something else entirely called Las Plagas, which is basically this parasite that infects your body, attaches to, I believe it's your spine or something like that, and then slowly takes over, which then allows the person with the kind of like a mother parasite, if you want to, or the main parasite to control other people. So it's kind of like this parasitic cult almost, or something. Obviously that's one of the cool things about Resident Evil, where there's these kind of throwbacks to different horror, and this one kind of takes some inspiration from Lovecraft in that regard, because you have like a village that's being controlled by a cult or whatever, so it's really cool. Obviously they lean more heavily into the Lovecraft stuff when it comes to Resident Evil 8, which is obviously very heavily inspired, but yeah, this kind of started it all off. Also, one thing you're gonna really love is the merchant himself. This is the guy who you go to upgrade your weapons, because obviously you don't just have your standard weapons like you do in the Resident Evil games. You can actually buy and sell weapons and upgrade them, which is one of the coolest things in this game. You know, it just adds that extra bit of depth. So obviously you'll have like your standard gun, and then you can upgrade the you know, the firing rate, the capacity, the actual reload speed, power, those sorts of things. And then what's really cool is each weapon, when you get it to a certain level, past a certain threshold, they get like an exclusive ability. So not, you know, no one weapon is better than the other really. It really depends on your playstyle. So obviously the base handgun, if I remember correctly, just gets like a ridiculous amount of ammo for its exclusive ability. And then there's another one called the Red Tail, which just gets like stupid firepower. So it's essentially each bullet becomes like a magnum round or something. So that's always been one of my favorite ones. And then you have different shotguns and machine guns. Some weapons better than others. You have one like the mine gun, which isn't that great, but it's still cool because it has this explosive mine that blows up enemies, so you can gather a lot together and blow them up. It's really cool. And obviously you get the trusty rocket launcher as well, which is awesome. You can't upgrade that one, but you know, it's still there. And what's great about this game is once you've completed it, that's not it. You actually get some of the extra modes and costumes, stuff that would probably be DLC nowadays, obviously, but it's really cool. You get the one of my favorite modes ever, the Mercenaries. So basically in this mode, you've probably played it in some of the other ones. It's in 5, 6, and 8 as well. But there was kind of a version of it in 3, but that's not quite the same as this one. So basically what happens is there's 4 stages, and basically you have tons of enemies gathering. You have a time limit. You have to kill the enemies. You get points per each kill. But then if you get a longer chain, so basically I think you have 10 seconds between each kill to kill another enemy, and then it becomes a chain. And the bigger chain you have, the bigger bonus you get. And also you have to find time throughout the stage as well. So you have to actually move around the stage to find your time, because I think you start off with like a minute and a half or a minute, and then you get ones that will give you 30 seconds, 60, 190. It's really cool. Obviously, not to spoil too much, but then there's also a separate mode that you get after you complete the game, Assignment Ada. And in this mode, you actually get to like play as Ada in this mini game. You have to get from point A to point B and get I think it's like 5 different samples of the Las Plagas, which you're supposed to give to your boss, who I'm not going to spoil, but that's a cool little nod there. And also, one really cool thing about this game, and I think one reason why I'm suggesting it as well, is that it's basically ported to everything, so you don't have to like hook up some old system to GameCube to do it, because obviously, like I said, the first version was the GameCube version, which is a brilliant version, but basically a year later, the game got ported. I think I mentioned this before, but I think some of these exclusive deals, it was either, I'm assuming it was either timed or maybe because it didn't reach a certain amount of sales, they were allowed to port it over. But then eventually it got this version, the PS2 version. I have this awesome steelbook. It's like one of my favorites ever. This was actually my first experience with the game was within this version. But what they did was really genius, because obviously the PS2 wasn't as powerful as the GameCube. They had to obviously do some really intelligent cuts to get it to work. So basically the cutscenes weren't real time, were actually like video sequences, for example. It downgraded the visuals in specific ways as well. It's obviously, if you look side by side, it is noticeable, but you know, for me back in the day, I didn't really notice much. But then they also did some really cool things. They added some extra new modes as well. So they added a new gun, which is that thing there, which is the Plugger Destroyer, which will just like destroy an enemy straight away. And then they added a separate mode called Separate Ways, which basically you you played as Ada in the parts of the game, in the parts of the main story. So I think there was 5 different chapters, and it kind of coincides with the main story. It's a really cool little mini game, or side story if you want to call it that. And then besides that, everything else is in the game that was in the previous one. You got the same lockable costumes. There's 2 really awesome ones. You have a cowboy, no, it's a gangster outfit, sorry, for Leon, which is really cool. And you also get the suit of armor for Ashley. Because obviously that was kind of one of the contentious things about the game, was that you have to kind of, there's some missions where you have to escort Ashley, but you can just make her hide somewhere and then you take out the enemies. Basically, if she gets kidnapped, she gets taken away. So the whole point of that costume is that, you know, you don't have to worry about that, basically. But then after that version, when Nintendo launched the next system, the Nintendo Wii, one of the early titles was actually this one, Resident Evil 4 Wii Edition. This one's really cool because it was the GameCube version, visual-wise, but then it added all the extras from the PlayStation version. But then also, on top of that, it gave you the option to use point controls, which is really cool. So it added a whole new dimension to the game. This one is cool because you basically, you know, you can still use that original GameCube controller, which in my opinion, the game just plays best with. I don't know why, it felt like it was just designed by that specific controller. So if you plug in the game controller, you can use that, or if you don't, you want to use the point controls, you can. So it's really up to you. One little tip though, obviously if you're playing on a Wii U, you won't be able to use the game controller. You have to actually use the Classic Controller Pro on the Wii. Or if you've downloaded the digital version of the eShop, which is still available till March on the Wii U, you can actually use your gamepad, which is kind of cool. So yeah, that wasn't the end of it with the ports. There was actually loads more. So before that Wii version, there was actually a PC version, which was notoriously terrible and people just want to forget about. So obviously avoid that version. And then they actually did a HD version, like it would have been about 10 years or so after, I think, maybe a bit before that. But basically for the Xbox 360 and PS3, they essentially did a HD version. So it's basically the Wii version, 720p, but obviously without the point and controls. That's one of the cooler versions, I'd say. The only problem is with that one, I don't believe it's available anymore. You can't get it on Xbox anywhere. And I'm sure it's probably taken from the PlayStation Network as well. But there is a physical version of that one that was released in Japan, where they released both that and Code Veronica HD on a single disc. So if you want that version, that's a way of getting it. You'll also get the best version of Code Veronica that way as well. And then after that, they finally did what's called the Ultimate HD Edition for PC, where they kind of wanted to rectify the mistakes of that terrible PC version. So what they did is basically gave them all new high quality textures. You can play the game in 4K, and you even get the option for 60 frames a second, because obviously the original was only 30. That's a cool version, but the only thing with that one is I find for some reason it's not really been properly optimized for 60, so there's some really weird bugs and glitches, like some sound bugs, and also when you're playing it in professional mode, the enemy AI kind of goes insane. Like Leon's hitbox for some reason just doubles, and then enemies gets too aggressive. So like for example, there's the moment when you're in the cabin where you have to survive with Luis. That bit is just insanely difficult because these enemies hit you when they don't hit you, and it's really frustrating. But besides that, it's a great version. And obviously if you're playing on PC, you can put it down to 30 or whatever resolution you want. And you can even use the original textures in that version, which is cool. Yeah, and then there's another interesting thing. Before we talk about some of the other ports, there's actually like this really cool fan mod called the, I believe it's called the Ultimate HD Pack or something like that. This was basically, there's I think 1 or 2 dudes basically who wanted to restore the look of the original game. So what the person did was they took pictures in real life that was similar to places in the actual real, in the game, and added them into the game. So this is like a really cool texture pack, because obviously there's definitely a bit of a loss in quality with the HD textures. They don't look quite as good as they could. People prefer the look of the original. So that's just a really cool mod there if you're interested in the PC version. Take a look at that. I think it's called Ultimate HD Pack or something like that. And then finally, they bought that Ultimate HD Edition to the newer consoles at the time. So the PS4 and the Xbox One got a version. It's basically just the Ultimate HD version at 1080p 60. So you don't get 4K obviously, and you don't get the option to change to 30. But yeah, it's still a cool version. It's still awesome to have an actual physical version of that particular version. So if you want to get this one. And then finally, it actually did come to the Nintendo Switch. Which is, again, it's just that version. The only problem with that version is the frame rate does not like come close to locking to 60. It's kind of between 40 to 60. It kind of bumps up. It's a bit jittery, and you don't get the option to like put it down to 30, unfortunately. It's still a version of the game. It's still cool. You can have Resident Evil 4 on a handle, so you know, it's up to you really. But yeah, in my personal opinion though, I would really, if I'm gonna say, I would suggest playing this version really. I still think this is the best one. And obviously, if you can get hook it up to a CRT TV, or get some component cables, it looks fucking awesome, in my opinion. Definitely the one to play. Still an awesome game. I really think, like, if you haven't played this one, if you've played some of the newer games, I'm sure there's loads of people probably started off from 7, maybe the remakes, maybe 8 was even their first game through the Resident Evil series. This one's definitely worth going back to. Like, it's an awesome game. Still to this day, it's one of my favorites. I'm really interested to see what the remake does differently. When that comes out, hopefully I'll like to do like a first impressions or talk about the game, see what the differences are. But yeah, we'll wait till then. Oh my god, sorry, how could I forget there was 2 other versions of the game? Obviously you had the mobile port back in the day, which was essentially a stripped down, cut down version of the game, where you, I think it was cut into 5 different stages, and it was basically designed to be used with touchscreens. Very simple version of the game, which was also ported to a Brazilian console called Zebu, which is basically just an Android box that you could hook up to your TV. And then obviously there's the VR version, which was actually the latest release, which was released for Oculus Rift. So obviously you need a Facebook account, you need to buy like a fucking £300 system just to play this one game. Obviously really cool, interesting version of the game. Yeah, anyway, that's it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Have a great rest of the day. If you like the video, like, subscribe, and all that cool stuff. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a great rest of your day.